My name is Liza Naylor. I'm a local personal chef here in the York area. I also teach cooking classes in and around the area as well, here at Leg Up Farmers Market, at Horn Farm Center, down at Central Market, at Farm to Freezer York, if anyone has heard of Farm to Freezer York. So in any case, tonight we're just doing an introduction to tofu, super simple recipes, something just to get you sort of familiar with it. So tofu is, it is so versatile. It's got to be one of the most versatile foods out there. It's been around for thousands of years. The benefits, I don't even need to go into that with you. It's a fabulous substitute when you're making some of your favorite recipes. You can substitute tofu for any of the protein or an oil, that kind of thing. You can substitute it for a cheese. If you put a little bit of nooch, everybody know what nooch is? Nutritional yeast mixed in, and it gives it that nutty, sort of cheesy, Parmesan-y kind of flavor. So tonight we're just doing some super simple recipes with our food processor. We're going to make a dip and two different kinds of sweets, two different kinds of pudding with our tofu. So we're going to start with a banana date pudding. Super simple. These are asking for medium tofu. So when I went downstairs to look at Leg Up Farmers Market, you can find tofu in shelf stable, which is what this is right here. This is in the Asian section here at Leg Up Farmers Market, or you can find tofu in the refrigerated area by the vegetables. Either way is perfectly fine. It's entirely up to you how you want to purchase your tofu. So I purchased the shelf-stable tofu, and the options were soft here in the red. This is a firm and then an extra firm. So we didn't really have a medium option, but if we mix soft and firm, we should have something like a medium option. And these are in 12-ounce. These are 12-ounce blocks of tofu. Super, super simple. Tofu, you can freeze it. So if you're making a recipe and you don't use all of your tofu, you can freeze the rest.
Can you freeze the pudding too? Just say you make the pudding.
Yeah, you could. You could freeze. What I would do if you're thawing out the pudding, if you make it in bulk like that, I would just make sure you mix it up really, really well. Yeah. So here is what I would do. This is 12 ounces, and I really only need about 4 more ounces, so I'm going to let it slide right out. This is the firm tofu. So easy, so simple. It's fallen apart a little bit, but I am guesstimating about 4 more ounces here to put in with the soft tofu. And here we're using a little bit of oil, about a 1/4 cup of oil. Now let me just make a suggestion to you. We're cooking with tofu. It's very healthy. But one thing I learned the hard way, and this is something that I struggle with, oil is oil is oil is oil. So whether your oil is an olive oil, which is a little better for you than, say, a canola oil, or you're downing peanuts, on cashews, on walnuts, on peanuts, which is my problem. Oil is oil is oil. So it always has about 120 calories per tablespoon. So always remember that. And if that's what your health goal is, depending on what your health goal is, if you want to reduce your oil, I would recommend using an avocado here. A little bit of avocado would be perfect instead of using the canola oil. So we have a little bit of vanilla. Feel free to raise your hands if you have any questions throughout the process at all.
Have you ever tried it without oil?
Yeah, actually, it's fine. Now, the oil helps it, as it goes through the food processor, the oil helps it to congeal and thicken up. Similar, it emulsifies it, similar to a dressing, what the oil would do for a dressing. It also gives it a little bit of oomph and a little weight to it. So if you took the oil out and you used avocado or nothing at all in its place, it may not be as puddingy. Okay. It may be a little bit smoother, but it still would taste great and certainly wouldn't have the calories. Yeah. And that's entirely, up to you. So we have 2 teaspoons of vanilla in this particular recipe. And instead of soy milk, I'm using coconut milk. So I do that because something I always encourage, don't get intimidated by a recipe. When you look at it and you go to the store and they're out of this or they don't have that, feel free to do your substitutions. Just get online on your phones or whatever and do whatever substitution works for you. So here we have a little bit of soy milk, and we're looking for about 2 tablespoons of soy milk for this. And I'm using the coconut milk right here. And a touch of lemon juice. Okay, about a teaspoon of lemon juice, which I'm putting in my hand and letting it run through my fingers because there are teeny tiny bits of seed in there, and I want to make sure I catch it, which I did. Old-fashioned strainer. Oh! A touch of salt. And this is, when you see something like 1/8 of a teaspoon or 1/4 of a teaspoon in a recipe, basically what you're talking about is a pinch. And about 1/2 cup of dates. Now, since it's going through the food processor, if you are using an old blender at home and it just doesn't have a whole lot of power, feel free to pre-chop your dates. It certainly helps in the process. This has a lot, it's a Cuisinart, it has a lot of power. I don't have to pre-chop as many things. I also am crazy about dates. So I always use more. It's like me and garlic. Always use more dates than what it calls for. And then 2 ripe bananas. Overly ripe is absolutely fine here. This is a good opportunity to use your well-browned bananas, the flavor.
And what about if they were frozen? Like I freeze bananas if they're overly ripe?
Absolutely. They would be just packed with flavor. That would be so delicious. Now, it would change the color of the pudding and the end product, but it's just going to be a bit browner, which is fine.
Yeah.
Okay.
You probably want to thaw them first, though, right?
Oh, yes. Yeah. Thaw them first.
Okay. Your food processor, can you handle that?
That would be a problem. So you're going to let this go for a little while. You're going to see the bits of dates sort of gather around the sides, and then you're just going to scrape that down and let it go again for a little while. So here's what I want you guys to take a look at. And I'm going to have you pass it around. I don't want to walk too much, but jiggle it. Take a look at that puddingy texture. See how simple that is? So we have the firm, well, that's the half the firm. Okay. And a little bit of soft. Now, if you are using tofu as a meat substitute, so you're going to fry it up, you want to cube it and make it into something that typically would be chicken, you would want to get a firm or extra firm tofu. And then John was talking about what he does. The easiest thing to do to get that even more firm yet, get a little bit of a chewier texture, is to freeze it and then thaw it out. So when it's frozen and thaws, it actually takes on a little bit more of a firmer texture, a little chewier, a little meatier, I guess is the word that I'm looking for. All right, so we have 1.5 pounds of the medium tofu. Here we have a full 1/2 cup of oil. this is, yes, this is the canola oil. I'm actually reducing. I'm going to use less. There's no need, I think. So this is actually about 1/3 of a cup. If you have the opportunity to substitute for a healthier fat, please do. And about 1 cup of sugar. And here we're using the standard sugar. This is a natural cane sugar. A tablespoon of vanilla. Now this would be an opportunity also to pull out your vanilla bean and scrape that. That would be delicious. And a pinch of salt. And there we go. Again, the only thing here that's going to stick to the sides is your sugar. And then we'll wash up and do our garlic dip. Any questions so far? No? Super simple. Who does a lot of cooking at home? And who eats out a lot? So it's got to be really tough to find what you need in having to eat out. You end up probably with the same menu choices all the time. The vegan is the salad.
Restaurants in this area. I mean, if you guys are ever curious about that kind of stuff, just go ahead and post the Facebook group. Or are we sharing restaurant links and things?
Yeah, I think that's already been.
Yeah,
Okay,
so
good.
many good.
Yeah, there are a lot of good restaurants in this area.
Excellent.
Can I ask you, what would happen if instead of medium tofu, you use the soft or you use just the firm? What's the difference?
Your final product would be just a little more firm or a little softer.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And you may, for example, if you were to reduce the oil and use the firm tofu, in the morning you may see some cracks in it, the way tofu kind of sets up that way, and that's perfectly fine. Again, you just mix it all together. So would you like to divvy up? I'll just get you to wash your hands up real quick. And then I will wash this out, and we will make our dip.
Yeah.
So I have to tell you, it almost seems a crime for me to be juicing these lemons for our recipes without zesting them first. So let me just encourage everyone before you juice your lemons to zest them and get all that goodness for your baking, for your soups, for whatever you choose. And you can freeze it in a baggie. And then you just take out whatever you need, a teaspoon at a time from your baggie.
You know how you feel about your life. Let's add a little bit more of this.
Needs more acid. All right, and get this washed up. That's the only thing about tonight's cooking class. It's all in one utensil. So what do you think of it so far? You don't even miss the fact that it's not Jell-O brand, and it's almost as instant. Oh, there are spoons right here, yeah. Oh, okay. I'm sorry? Oh, yeah, you want the cold one? This is the cold one right here.
Do you guys want to switch it up, or does anybody? I'll take the one that was out. The fresh way.
You could make this a chocolate pudding very easily.
Yeah, to make it a chocolate, you just do the cocoa powder? Would you add any?
You would do it like you would do the cocoa powder. You would probably increase your sugar a little bit. Exactly, and cocoa powder can be a little bit bitter. Or you could simply melt up some chips and put the soft melted chips right in. That would be wonderful, and it would help it to set up once it cooled. The chips would help to, help it to solidify a little bit. Let's go ahead and start on our dip. So we're making a roasted garlic dip. How many here have had roasted garlic? Yes, okay. It's one of the joys of life. And the first time I ever tried it, many, many years ago, I think I sat and ate an entire bulb. I just sat there with crackers and the roasted garlic and just smeared it on and ate the entire bulb. It was divine. So what we have, we've roasted up our garlic ahead of time here. I'd like to pass that around so that everybody can have a chance to take a look at that. If you have a pen, whoops, I messed that up. But let me do this so you guys can take a look. If you have a pen, I'll tell you how to roast garlic. It's insanely easy. And it will impress all of your friends and your mother-in-law. So here we go. I'll just pass that around. The top of your garlic, as you can see there, you don't need to waste any of that. You could mince it and put it in the fridge for the next time you need garlic in whatever you're cooking. You're going to take off from the outside of the bulb as much of that papery exterior skin as possible. It doesn't have to be, gorgeous. And then you're going to put it inside of the foil and just do a little drizzle. I'd say maybe a teaspoon total of olive oil. And then it's in your oven at 400 degrees for 40 minutes. And check it, because sometimes the garlic is a little bit older, a little bit harder. It may take a little bit longer, but if you start checking it at 40 minutes, you should be good. So when you're using roasted garlic, let's say you're making a recipe that calls for standard garlic, and you want to use roasted garlic instead because you want that fullness of flavor, you can go ahead and double the amount of roasted garlic, because as it roasts, it becomes more mild in flavor. It's not going to have that sort of bitter garlickiness that we've all had at one time or another. So here you can be really gingerly if you want to, which I normally am not, and just squeeze it out the bottom here, clove by clove, or you can just go for it, like I do. And it comes out beautifully. I'll fish out anything that may be up there. May have fallen through. Wonderful. Okay, so we need about a half a pound or so of soft tofu. And look at that. I used up all the soft tofu, so we're going for medium tofu anyway, or firm. The only time it really matters is if you can use the firm tofu for things that call for soft tofu, but when you're doing a recipe that calls for firm tofu, you don't want to use soft, because whatever it is going to fall apart. It's not going to have the oomph to it. So this is about 12 ounces. So half pound is about 8 ounces. As you can see, it's not as important to be exact. In fact, waste not, want not. I'm going to go ahead and put all 12 ounces in. Okay, a little bit of fresh lemon juice. And you can use the sugar here if you would like. It is not necessary. I'm going to cut the sugar in half. I think it calls for a tablespoon. I'm going to do about a teaspoon of sugar because it's just not that necessary. 2 tablespoons of fresh lemon juice. 1, 2. And a clove of fresh garlic as well, just to bring up that garlic brightness. And a pinch of salt. Okay, so we have our tofu. It calls for a 1/4 cup of oil. Again, that's going to help to emulsify. I am using a full 1/4 cup because I added more tofu in. Lemon juice, sugar, salt, roasted garlic, and some fresh garlic. Super simple. Now, one thing to note here as this is going, this is where you can add whatever your favorite seasoning is. So, for example, you may like it plain, just like this, but I would add a tandoori spice or some sort of a curried spice to this. Whatever your favorite spice mix is, this would be great with a Caribbean jerk or, just anything that you might have at home. Anything Middle Eastern, anything South American, you could put some taco seasoning in with this, and it would be a fabulous taco seasoning dip. So we're just making it plain, but just remember when you get home, play with this, make it your own. Any questions up till now? Has anyone tried any of the more in-depth, or looked at, let's put it that way, looked at some of the more in-depth tofu recipes? You can make tofu enchiladas, you can make tofu scrambled eggs. That's a big, easy one, so super simple.
Can you tell us a little bit about that? Because I've heard of that, but
Sure.
I don't know anything about that.
So let's play around with that. We're going to play with our food for a second, actually, because we have an extra tofu here, and I'll just take it home with me. So if you're making a tofu scramble, or if you are making, let's say, tacos with tofu instead of burger. So you open up, you're going to use a firm or an extra firm tofu because you want it to have a little bit of texture and chunk to it. Okay. The refrigerated tofu has a lot more liquid with it, so you want to drain off that liquid. The shelf-stable tofu does not. It's not necessary.
Is one better than the other?
No, not necessarily. Yeah, it's entirely up to you. So basically, and I'll just do it sort of like this. If this were your tacos, you would literally put your tacos packet, your taco seasoning right inside with it, and then you just mash it, just like this. Now what you're going to see is going to look exactly like scrambled eggs. So that plain, or with just a little bit of salt, or whatever your favorite seasoning is, a touch of sriracha, whatever you'd like, this is going to be your scrambled egg. And you would literally put a little bit of oil, make sure that your oil is good and hot, because tofu will stick to your pan a little bit, unless you have a non-stick pan. But make sure your oil is good and hot, and then you would use your standard spatula and fry it up just like you would with eggs, and put it with whatever you want. You can saute onions and peppers first, and then put this with it. For a scramble, it's entirely up to you. And if this were your taco mix, then you would do the same thing in a skillet, just like you would with your burger, and then you would put it right into your tacos with your lettuce and your toppings. Any other questions?
Can you talk a little bit about pressing tofu?
Pressing tofu. Actually, I have never made tofu myself, so in pressing tofu, you're just getting a lot of that moisture out so that you have something that is much meatier, I guess, in the end, essentially. You would use, let's see, I guess you would just put it through cheesecloth, right?
That's one way to do it.
Yeah.
They make tofu presses.
They do make tofu presses.
Paper towels,
below, above, on something that will catch the liquid, and then something heavy on top.
Right.
Like I use my cutting boards
Okay, perfect.
twice. I let it sit for 30 minutes.
Okay.
Each time change paper towels, or you could use cloth.
And again, you would use an extra firm, right?
Yeah, I like firm.
Definitely an extra
And
firm.
then freeze it and press it again after you thaw it.
Okay, so then it's really meaty.
Oh.
Did everybody catch that process? So basically, they're talking about pressing tofu. And you can either put it into cheesecloth and allow it to, drip out. Or you were talking about putting it between paper towels, plenty of paper towels, and then something heavy on top. She uses her cutting boards on top and lets it press for about 30 minutes. She freezes it, brings it back out, and does it again after it's thawed to get all of the moisture out. And then it's really, I want to say rubbery. It's not, it's meaty. It's the texture that you want. It's texture. Right, it's really meaty. Yeah. You can slice it and fry it. Now, I've always just taken standard extra firm tofu without pressing it at all and sliced it and fry it.
I slice it first and press it sliced. So then it's ready to go in the freezer sliced and ready to use when I pull it. I can pull out whatever.
Yeah, that's nice. That's very nice. Any other questions? If I don't know, somebody does. We'll figure it out together. So, it is good. It is a little sweet. So you could, there's sugar in it. A little bit of sugar in it, yeah. But yeah, the roasted garlic does have a sweetness to it. But again, you can see how it would lend itself to whatever your seasoning was that you wanted to put in there. A jerk would be fabulous, and a curry would be fabulous, and just something really divine, and people would have no idea that they're missing. They would think that they're eating a yogurt dip, a standard yogurt dip. Yeah. Well, great. Thank you, guys.
Maybe like substituted for like a tzatziki sauce or something?
This would be perfect for tzatziki.
That would be good.
So for a tzatziki, let's think about what that would look like. You would need a little bit, you would need the firm. You would definitely need the firm because you're adding in cucumbers. And with the sodium that you're going to put in there, a little bit of salt, the cucumbers are going to release all of their liquid. And that's going to cause it to become juicier. Right. So then you would use, some people like parsley in their tzatziki. I like cilantro in my tzatziki, and a little bit of onion. And that's really pretty much it. You really wouldn't need anything else in terms of flavoring. Just a little bit of salt, a little bit of onion, your herb of choice, fresh herb, and cucumber.
And this is extra firm or just firm?
I would use firm or extra firm.
Oh, either one.
Yeah, either one. So you would mix it, you would make it entirely smooth in the food processor, and then you would add your cucumbers and your cilantro after. Because you wouldn't want those to become totally smooth. Yeah, that would be delicious. Yeah. Any other suggestions with tofu? Super simple. Wonderful.